Hey everybody, Tom Gentile. Welcome to another Profit Strategies podcast as we are now into the first week of November. Glad to have you hanging out with us. Chris Johnson, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Tom. If I were any better, somebody would call the police, I think.
Man, I got to tell you, what a crazy week. The biggest head fake in history is what I'm calling it.
I think you're exactly right. Yeah.
Everybody thought this market was dropping after the election non-results, let's call it.
Mm-hmm.
But it all turned out that the only thing the market was really worried about was the Senate flipping, which did not happen. So it looks like worst case scenario, we're going to see 2 years of nothing.
Isn't it great to look forward to? Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, everybody was expecting the blue wave, and we got a drip. I mean, there was a little bit of a blue stream, let's call it. But with Mitch McConnell and the Senate still, in his hands, or at least it appears that way, unless something happens in the next 24 hours, we're looking at a lot of the same. It's just somebody different, possibly in the White House. And obviously that still has yet to be nailed down, but seems to be going that direction, right?
So, absolutely.
Yeah, nobody likes to look forward to 2 years of nothing. But I think there's a silver lining here, Tom. I'm not going to get all political, but if you think about it, the Republicans have a big year coming up in 2 years. The Senate race, the midterms are going to be huge for the Republicans. They can't afford to upset a lot of people over the next 2 years. So I think you're going to find them working with the Democrats a little more. So maybe actually more gets done over the next 2 years. That'd be great for the market for sure.
Yeah. So the one big topic that I want to talk about in this podcast, if we were to really laser focus in, is not only what the market's done this week, but what I like to call the biggest move in the market itself. And the stock market definitely surprised even me. I did not expect what happened this week to happen with the big race to the top. I mean, it looks, Chris, as if we might see all-time highs soon.
Yep, that's the way it's looking. And not just in small areas. I mean, across most of the boards.
And, I have to say that you got to give most of that credit to the U.S. dollar, which tanked. It tanked this week.
As it should be. I hate to say it, it should be. And we've got this fiscal stimulus. We've got everything going on. Finally the dollar broke down. Gold and silver are starting to go and act the way they should. And your crypto, come on.
And that's what we're going to talk. That's what we're going to talk about, folks, today, because the biggest move in the market wasn't the stock market. It wasn't gold, although gold had a great week. I mean, it took a little bit. It was like the caboose on the northbound train, but it did finally pick up and move. And so obviously I'm very happy about that. I personally am very happy about that. But what eclipsed them all was Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I mean, 10% moves, toward the end of the week, we were seeing 15,000 we're now above, in Bitcoin. Big moves. And, I can't, I don't want to beat a dead horse on this, but I've been talking about this pretty much, this year for sure. Going back to when Facebook started to create their own coin and why that was good for Bitcoin. I wrote about that. I wrote about the crypto coin that could deliver 5,000%. And then why, and even why folks like Jamie Dimon were wrong about Bitcoin. Obviously, that's starting to play out. But, the biggest thing, the most recent article and the most recent information that I've wrote about on this is how the pandemic was going to reveal Bitcoin as one of the biggest moves in what I think is the hottest sector this year. And so, just do some math and look, Chris, Bitcoin is up. We were earlier this year, Bitcoin dropped to below 4,000. So if you really want to look at the ranges, you go back to March when everything was on sale. Bitcoin is up well over 300% this year. I mean, we're knocking on 400% off those lows. But if you look at Bitcoin, from a level of 10,000, if you looked at it as a level of 10,000, we're up 50% now for the year from 10.
Uh, so Tom, back it up, and you did nail it. I mean, you've been nailing this all along. So 2018, you had Bitcoin hit 20,000. Are we heading back to 20,000 on Bitcoin?
Oh yeah. I mean,
2020?
my prediction for the end of this year was 15,000. And last week I was talking about this on a webinar, and I said, heck, I might even said it on the podcast last week. I don't know. But I said, heck, we might even hit it before the end of the week of the election or within the next week. And we absolutely hit it. So, I mean, next stop, 20,000, which is the all-time highs. And from there, I think it just starts to multiply, because you're talking about, unlike the US dollar, unlike pretty much any other currency in the world, this thing, you can't print more of them. I mean, there are only so many coins that are going to be out there. And, the mining goes all the way out to, they're saying the last cryptocurrency will be mined in the year 2140. Now, unless there is some miracle drug that you and I are going to be able to take to live that long, Chris, I won't be around then. And, I mean, even my children will not. I mean, this is something where your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren could benefit from. But here's the staggering thing. If you look at mining anything, really, and you've got a certain area where you can only mine it in, as you take more and more of that out of the ground, less and less is there to be received. And if you look at gold mines, for instance, back in the days, back in the 50s, even before the 1850s, gold, the only way they mined it was what they could see. So now a lot of what you could see is no longer available in the same spots that were there decades ago. So now you have to actually mine the unseen gold. And so now we're using technology to mine unseen gold, because the big stuff's gone in a lot of cases. Well, guess what? The same thing is true with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. I mined cryptocurrency back in 2013, and I was able to pull with this big, I called it a mini fridge computer. I'm telling you, the thing had 16 fans on it. It was unbelievable. And it sounded like a swarm of bees. But I was mining about a coin a week out of that thing then. And even then, I thought, wow, this is just going to take forever. Within 6 months, that one coin a week became one coin a month. And then it just got less and less and less, because as more get mined, there are less to mine, and the difficulty of getting a Bitcoin becomes greater and greater. And it's also part of that halving process where the rewards become less and less too.
Right. So riddle me this, and this is, so there's a scarcity. There's a scarcity element that is going to make its place as Bitcoin moves further, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's going to increase the price.
It's not worth mining anymore, at least for me. I don't even like the companies that say they'll mine it on your behalf and they'll charge you, because it doesn't make. I mean, now it might start to make sense when we get at the $15,000, $20,000 level. These things, you're going to start hearing about them again. I mean, CNBC now has the Bitcoin ticker back. I almost hate when that happens, because now basically they're showing the hand to everybody. And I'm not saying Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies won't have volatility to the downside too, because nothing ever goes up in a linear line when it comes to cryptocurrencies, or anything for that matter. But a buddy of mine, one of my best friends, and I'm talking about a guy, and we go back to the Home Depot days. He and I. This was when Home Depot to us was a job. A job is something that you don't want to do. A career is something you never have enough time to focus on a career. And he and I were slinging pipe in the back of the store, plumbing pipe. This guy is a Bitcoin millionaire now, because he saw, like I did, the idea that this was something that was going to catch on. The thing is he didn't mine it. He was buying it. He was buying it back in the days when it was cheap. And what I'm saying is that, is Bitcoin cheap today? I think it is when you look at a 10-year graph and you look at supply and demand and you look at the popularity, which will continue because Bitcoin really is the foundational coin. There'll be a whole bunch of other ones that come out, and there already are. But Bitcoin was the one that started it all. And so
Mm-hmm.
we were talking on the phone, my best friend or my buddy, who's he's a Bitcoin millionaire now, and I said, he asked me, where do I think Bitcoin's going? I said, well, you haven't seen my latest video I did on this, because my prediction 10 years out is $500,000 a coin. So how many coins do you need in order to be a Bitcoin millionaire? It's very simple. If you believe, and I do, I believe Bitcoin in 10 years is a $500,000 instrument. Because when you look at the market cap and you look at that versus other assets that are out there right now, and you look at institutional investing that's going into this thing, $500,000 a coin, you only need two. You only
Yep.
need two. All right. Well, what do two cost you right now? Well, about
$30,000.
$30,000, right? About $30,000. Two cost you $8,000 in March. Let's call it 10,000 if you missed that. They were 4,000. They were less than $4,000 a coin in March, and they were 5 for a while, and they were 10 for a long while. But I mean, you look at what this thing has done this year. It has outperformed everything, and nobody's talking about it.
So let's back it up. And this is where I really do say, riddle me this. So for the person that is listening to you and I right now, talking about Bitcoin and how to be a Bitcoin millionaire, what's the easiest way? Everybody hears about you trading futures on them and buying them from different exchanges.
I
If
mean,
your
there's
mom
several
wants
ways
to
you can
buy
do
a
this.
Bitcoin, if your mom wants to do it, Tom, and how
Wow.
are you going to tell, or just somebody
Well,
random on the
my
street?
mother-in-law, my
Okay.
mother-in-law has a Coinbase account. My mother-in-law has
Okay.
a Binance account. Now, I'll let you know this. She couldn't figure that out on her own. She needed some help. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously she has me, and she has my family, because my entire family is involved in this. My extended family is involved in this. These guys are, my son and my nephews. They all got involved in this. But watching my mother-in-law get excited about it, and you guys, if you know me, I talk about my mother-in-law a lot. She's off the boat Italian. She starts her sentences in English and she ends them in Italian, and I can't understand half of what she says.
I've got
She
a
refers
grandmother that yells at me.
she refers
Yeah.
to Facebook as bookface. I need the book face. That's what she I bought the two Google. That's what that's what she does.
Oh,
But she's involved in cryptocurrency. Now, I'm going to
so
tell you
how's
when
she
she got
buying?
involved. She got involved in cryptocurrency like most other people did when it was at the top in 2017, because she
Mm-hmm.
still, she repeats it like a parrot. I'm down on Bitcoin. I've lost money on Bitcoin. And of course, everybody reminds her it's not about today. It's not about tomorrow. It's about years from now. This is one of those ways that I like to call getting rich slow. If you own the actual cryptocurrency and you're using a platform like, you could use Coinbase, but PayPal is now going to allow you to buy Bitcoin. They made announcements on this. This is
Mm-hmm.
going to become. In fact, I just got an email from Coinbase this week that said, "Hey, introducing the Coinbase debit card. So now you're going to be able to spend your Bitcoin through their debit card. Isn't that something? I mean,
Yeah.
this
So
is this is
is the
all
dollar
catching on
finally
like
going by the
wildfire.
way of the is the dollar finally going the way of the buggy whip then?
I don't know. I mean, you know what? We've been talking about getting rid of cash since the credit card back in the 70s, and that hasn't happened, and it never will.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
there is this digital wave that is sweeping the world. And so you asked me, and I got off track, so I want to get back on track. Best way
Yep.
to invest in Bitcoin. Number
Hit it.
one, if you want 100% of the move in Bitcoin, you have to actually invest in the actual cryptocurrency itself. And look at Coinbase.com. Look at there are bitpay.com. There are ways that you could purchase Bitcoin outside of Coinbase. In fact, one of the best things you could do, and we have a pretty far-reaching crowd here, Chris. I mean, these aren't folks that just live in the U.S. These are folks that live all over the world. So I would suggest Googling cryptocurrency in your country and starting the process there. That's one thing you could do. The second thing you could do is, like you said, there are futures contracts. There are what I want to call derivatives that
Mm-hmm.
move up and down very well and very correlated with Bitcoin. There are companies like Schwab and TD Ameritrade and Thinkorswim that offer these as part of part of their asset class that you can go into. There are ETFs you could look at. There are Robinhood, for instance, has I want to call it a faux Bitcoin, way of investing in cryptocurrencies. They basically, it looks the way it looks as if they are the market maker that will go in and allow you to purchase. Although the spreads are wider when you go through Robinhood, but there are several different ways of doing it. And Chris, you've got a couple stocks that look to benefit as Bitcoin moves from 15 to 20 to $25,000 a coin. So why don't you
Yeah,
share those?
we've already hit one of them, PayPal. I mean, they came out and didn't rock the world last week, but certainly shook things up a little bit and said, hey, we're going to accept it for payment. And guess what? You can buy them. That's a big move for someone like me. And Tom, I haven't traded Bitcoin. My son came to me in December of 2017, and he and a bunch of his friends had put a bunch of those Raspberry Pi, the computers together, and were trying to mine them. And I said, you know what? This is probably the top. And it was at that point. Now everybody's really interested. I'm interested because it's a growth cycle now. I look at PayPal and I say, yep, this is right up my alley. I want to keep it simple. But Facebook came under fire for trying to come out with their own currency, but that is a segue into the Bitcoin area, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, they were as much as, and I can remember as Mark Zuckerberg just being tongue lashed by our representatives up in Washington, D.C. But at the same time, look at where we are with Bitcoin now and how it's being accepted. And man, you may not like Mark Zuckerberg, but the guy's ahead of his times. He's an Elon Musk type. And then the other one that you and I have talked about, Overstock.com. And
Mm-hmm.
this is one of those when it comes out of left field, I think, for most people. When they announced more than a year ago that they were going to start accepting Bitcoin, it was that, and they were going to deal with the Bitcoin market.
Yeah.
It's kind of that, what in
Look
the
at
world are you doing? And you remember the old CEO? He had all the Sith Lord references. It's a different CEO now. And it's just, again, it's
yeah.
these cutting edge
I
companies
mean,
that you don't think of it. They come out of left field, but those three, PayPal, Facebook, Overstock.
look at look at. I'm looking at the markets for the week, and you look
Mm-hmm.
at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. It was up. They've had a couple of 2% days. A couple
Yep.
2-3% days in the last couple of days. But then you look at PayPal, for instance, which is running 3%. It was running 3%, 4% a day. And then you
Mm-hmm.
look at Facebook, all right, and look at Facebook stock, and it is running 3 to 4 to even 5. I mean, they were up 7% earlier this week. And then you look at Overstock.com. Symbol is OSTK for those of you that are following along with us. I mean, 14% on Thursday. 14.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which is what Bitcoin's done this week, right? 14, 15.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
exactly. So, if you want to leverage, if you want some leverage on this, and the thing is that I don't see Overstock.com becoming $100,000 a share. I don't.
no.
They're going to figure out down the road that as they're accepting Bitcoin, they're going to flip that Bitcoin into fiat currency because they have to, as part of their business. But they are getting an edge by accepting cryptocurrency that's moving up, and that's what's causing the stock to move higher. But yeah, OSTKPYPL was the other one, and then
Yeah.
of course Facebook. Everybody
The
knows.
book face. The book
That's right,
face.
the book face. But yeah, so as Bitcoin, moves higher, so goes Bitcoin, so goes those three stocks. And those are just a handful, but those are the ones that I think really, the first two, Facebook, PayPal, Facebook, are really the, those are great big stocks anyway. That extra leverage, for instance, I mean, Overstock.com was down quite a bit, over the last 3 months. If you go back a few, before this week, they were hitting their lows for the last 3 months, and so yeah, they've come up. I mean, they were in trouble back in March. I mean, they were just sucking in.
Yep.
But I mean, they ran up to $125 a share. They're back down in the 60s. They bounced off 60. Now, now we're in the high 60s, and I believe a lot of that high 60 is Bitcoin itself jumping up. That these double digit percentages this week. So
Yep.
the last thing I want to talk about, Chris, is the big thing. Well, how do we get to 500K? 500K is a big number. We're 15 right now. How do we get to 500K? Well, it is 10 years, folks. This is a 2030 prediction that I have, and you have to think of it in doubles. Okay, so we're at 15K. How many doubles? How many licks does it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop, Chris? The world will never know. But
the world will never know.
How many doubles would it take to go from 15,000 to 500,000? Do you know it's actually no more? It's just a little bit more than 5. So follow along with me. 15 becomes 30. 30 that's the first double. 30 becomes 60. That's the second double. 60 becomes 120. That's the third double. 120 becomes 240. That's the fourth double. And 240 becomes 480. And I mean, we're sitting on 500 then. That's 5 doubles. If you don't think that can happen, I mean, look at what's happened already this year. We went from 3,800 Bitcoin and we're at 15,000 right now. So we've actually from that point, we've had 2 doubles. We've actually had 2 doubles off the low this year. And I'm looking for 5 doubles in 10 years. It absolutely can happen.
I believe it. I'm with you. I've got to jump on the Bitcoin train here, Tom.
It's amazing. I mean, I look at it's nice because we all know somebody or know somebody who knows somebody who is involved in Bitcoin, and of course, we were, and I call myself we were all laughed at. I was laughed at by my wife. I was laughed at by my wife, who said, "You're doing what? You're paying $15,000 for a computer to do what?"
Yep.
And I said, "Yeah, this is, And then, of course, 6 months later, she forced me to get rid of my Bitcoin mining machine because A, it was too loud, and B, it generated so much heat. It was banned in the garage. And then the garage was over 90 degrees when we walked into it. And that was in wintertime. And this thing could have been used as a portable heater. That's the biggest regret she has now, because when she sees Bitcoin and every time they say it makes a new high, she looks at me. She doesn't say anything, but her eyes say it all.
She knows. Yeah, she knows. Well,
so
she knows. That is funny. She made you get rid of your toy, and now she regrets it for sure.
Oh yeah. She said it's the only computer she ever knows of that did not degrade itself in value because it actually did something besides look at social media.
True story. Yeah.
But guys, I got to tell you, I mean, I am looking forward to seeing and meeting and conversing with a lot more Bitcoin millionaires, cryptocurrency millionaires, as this becomes more and more mainstream. And it really is a tale of two stories here. The story of the fact that digital currency is going to become more and more mainstream. But the other tale is the tale of the falling U.S. dollar. And as the U.S. dollar falls, what does that do? That does make stocks more advantageous. The bond markets, the reason it's not going up in my mind is simply because, when you got your interest rates at 0, how much more can, you expect bonds to go? People are moving out of bonds simply because they're moving their money into something that's going to produce. and it's not the safe haven. But you look at stocks and you look at alternative assets that have been going up, like gold and silver, precious metals, foodstuffs, and finally, the big one, cryptocurrencies. Chris, any parting words before we shove off for the rest of the weekend?
Tom, I wish you a great weekend. I hope we get over this some end to this political strife here, or whatever's going on, and because we both know it's going to be good for the market. And I am actively looking at Coinbase right now because of my discussion with you.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm ashamed. I do not own Bitcoin coin yet. Of all the things I own.
Well, that's okay because, Chris, I'm telling you and everyone else, with this one, I still think we're in the early stages, believe it or not, as high as this price of Bitcoin is right now. I still believe we really are in the early stages, and we're going to see something big happen here in the not too distant future. So, guys, everybody, I want to thank you all for being part of the Profit Strategies podcast, and we'll see you again next week.